Krishnamurthy sir also. Sir has also joined us.
Yeah, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for being part of the session today. And a very warm welcome to all the participants who have just joined us for today's webinar. I warmly welcome all the participants, and within a few minutes from now, we shall be beginning with today's webinar on user experience considerations for building modern apps at sharp at 6 p.m. Dear participants, the ones who have joined us just now, I request you kindly ensure whatever devices you have connected with us through for today's webinar, you should be able to access the chat window on the same. This webinar shall also be live streamed on our official YouTube channel, BVI Cam New Delhi. But the live streaming is only for knowledge dissemination purposes. So the feedback form link for today's session shall only be shared with the participants who join this webinar through this WebEx room. So in case any of your colleagues or friends plan to join the webinar, but through some other mechanism, kindly request them to join directly the WebEx room and earn themselves a certificate of participation for this webinar. So dear participants, we are about to begin with the webinar in a matter of a few seconds from now.
Good evening, Bhatia Sahab. Good evening, Krishnamurthy, Subhamanyam Krishnamurthy Sahab. I will reach college in probably next 20 minutes and then we'll switch on the video.
Sir, can we begin?
Oh, yes, please start.
Thank you, sir. A very pleasant evening to all distinguished panelists and participants. Bharati Vidyapeeth Institute of Computer Applications and Management, BVI CAM, in association with Computational Intelligence Society, CIS chapter of IEEE Delhi section, Computer Society chapter of IEEE Delhi section, Technology and Engineering Management Society, TEMS chapter of IEEE Delhi section, System, Man and Cybernetics SMC Society chapter of IEEE Delhi section, Communication Society of IEEE Delhi section, Consultants Network Affinity CNA Group of IEEE Delhi section, Life Member Affinity LMA Group of IEEE Delhi section, Inter-Society Relations IRS Standing Committee of IEEE Delhi section, Industry Relation and Special Interest Group on Humanitarian Technology, Site Standing Committees of IEEE Delhi section, with the Associations of Computer Society of India, Institute of Information Technology Professionals, IITP, ISTE Delhi section, and IETE Delhi Center as technical collaborators welcomes you all to this webinar on user experience considerations for building modern apps. It is a moment of pride and honor to announce that we with united hand mark special contribution for the monumental occasion Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, an initiative to celebrate 75 years of glorious independence by organizing thought-provoking sessions for our better future. This webinar is an initiative for celebration of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. According to Winston Churchill, we shape our buildings, thereafter they shape us. The same is true for software apps today. User experience has always been a key peg when it comes to building successful solutions that are loved and used heavily by their end users. As technology evolves, new tools come up, new studies are done, the approach to build successful user experiences that are more relevant to users today has also evolved tremendously. This session today will try to look a bit of history of evolution of user experience UX, where it is now and what are some of the key considerations for where it is headed to in coming years. I would first take this opportunity to welcome amongst us our distinguished panelists for the day. We are privileged to have amongst us a galaxy of experts. I would now request Professor M.N. Huda Sir, Director, Bharati Vidyapeeth Institute of Computer Applications and Management, BVI CAM, and Vice Chairperson, IEEE Delhi Section, to address the participants with his inspiring words.
Am I audible, Dr. Ritika?
Yes, sir.
So, good evening, everyone.
At the outset, let me welcome the today's valued speaker, Mr. Vinay Sharma ji, who has very kindly accepted our request and is here with all of us to share his experience. Dear friends, this is 109th BBI Camp Evening Weekly Webinar Series. And on this occasion, I must welcome all my friends from various collaborating professional societies, IEEE, CSI, IET, and other societies which Dr. Ritika has already mentioned. All of you know, many who are attending right from 2020, that this webinar series was started in June 2020 in the backdrop of COVID-19, and this is 109th of that series. And today's topic is building modern day mobile apps. Friends, all of us know that every coming day, the challenge is how to ensure that the services at the last mile should be delivered on a handy device, handheld devices, so that everyone should be in a position to use it. But now the challenges are more, because one phase of mobile app has already been over. Now we need to understand that innovations and creativity has to go deep inside while building the mobile apps. And then only we will be in a position to provide seamless services, that too on a handheld device, to our customers. That is the challenge. Many of the models have come up, particularly the Google-based engines, and in the backdrop of analytics-driven system, the Google-based engine and other engines are also useful. And we need to decide that for which environment, whether it is a hybrid kind of app or it's a native app, for which kind of environment we are going for this mobile app development, and for which we have invited Mr. Vinay Sharma ji for being with all of us, and to enlighten us that what are the challenges before us and how we have to go ahead for this. So thank you so much. Keep learning despite disruptions, and keep attending the webinars of this IEEE BBI Camp webinar series. Thank you so much. Wish you all the best. God bless you all. We have already notified 5 more webinars till 25th of March. So those who have not registered should register for them, and keep encouraging us by participating, by attending in these webinars, and keep writing your questions in the chat window, which Dr. Ritika at the end of the webinar will be taking up. So thank you so much. Wish you all the best. और फिर अगले सैटरडे फूलों की तरह फिर खिलेंगे हम, और अगले सैटरडे एक नए टॉपिक के साथ फिर मिलेंगे हम. All the best to you. Over to you, Dr. Ritika.
Thank you, sir. I would now welcome amongst us our expert speaker, Mr. Vinay Krishna Sharma, sir, Director, Nagaro, with an e-bouquet. Mr. Vinay Krishna Sharma, sir, has over 2 decades of experience in the industry and comes with a diverse experience of working across both product and services organization. He started as a UI developer and gradually moved into product and program management roles after acquiring relevant experience and education. He has built and supported product committees in the past and also built product using power of crowd when he was at Adobe. He did business management certificate from XLRI Jamshedpur and has worked for startups as well as large global companies during his journey. He is a strong agile advocate and believes in the mantra that happy teams leads to happy customers. He is most passionate about customer and user experience topic, with perhaps that is the main contribution today he brings to the solution development he is part of. Currently, he's playing the role of a director at Nagaro and playing multiple hats of customer engagement, product engineering, and business development. I welcome you to this session today, sir, and will now request you to kindly enlighten the House.
Dr. Ritika, for the warm welcome. Very happy to be here. Warm welcome to all the audience today in the session. Thanks to the panelists and Professor Dr. Huda and all the panel member here today for giving me this opportunity and encouraging me. Thanks to Ajay for encouraging me to also be here and conduct this session and share whatever I have learned over the years, and if it can be of use, and if it can spark some triggers in the mind of you attendees today to maybe follow this line or this passion, I think my job would be done today. So that's a great start for me today. Thank you so much. So I can share my content and start, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's get started. Again, warm welcome to everybody to this session. This session, as Dr. Ritika introduced, is pretty close to my heart as a topic. A lot of the people in the audience today could be technical people, program manager, delivery manager, students, academicians, whatever. But we do a lot of stuff when we build stuff, right? When we build applications. But like quality, user experience is again one topic which touches everybody, right? So it's that kind of a topic which you cannot avoid. So at every step of the journey, when you are building something, user experience is going to be important. So I thought, why not talk about this today, and help people, imagine their solutions in a different way. So yeah, going forward, the agenda today would look something like this. I'll introduce this topic, the definition of what user experience actually is, because a lot of time there is a confusion about what user experience actually is. People still think of it in a different manner, but let's try to define it again. What type of roles this field encompasses, so and what are their differences. So we'll talk about that. Then we'll deep dive into a 5-step UX framework, that how should we conduct, let's say, user experience when we are building something. Then we'll gradually delve into some kind of consideration differences between when we are building for, let's say, web versus what we are building for, let's say, mobile applications. Then certainly, while we may always love to know what is to be done, it is always important to know what is not to be done. So we'll look at some examples of what is not to be done. We'll talk about some useful tips. We'll see some examples, and then we'll talk about where UX as a topic is heading into the future before we finally wrap up the session. So that's the agenda for today broadly.
So when I run feedback, when I'm seeing the screen, I'm seeing your main slide and the next slide also. So just in case you want to avoid that, and I can see the notes as well.
Oh, is it okay now?
Now it is perfect. Yes. Good.
Thanks. It was default view, I believe. Okay. So let's look at the definition of the user experience as defined by, let's say, the International Organization of Standard. So if you look at the part that I've highlighted in yellow, it's the person's perception and responses that result from the use or anticipated use of a product, system, or service. So here the definition is let me back up a bit. So today, while we are going to talk about more of digital products and user experience, but this definition is holistic, right? It is not about just digital products. It's about any kind of product that you interact with. So if you look at this definition and try to kind of break it down, it's the user experience would not be able to. We cannot design user experience for an emotion, but we have to create certain factors that evoke that emotion, right? So how do we generate that emotion is what user experience does. So that's what this definition is trying to say. So it's a very human-centered approach that is followed these days, and the definition is trying to suggest the same. So that's a formal definition. But if we go further and try to expand it, so this term was actually coined by Don Norman, who is part of Norman Nielsen design firm. And he coined this term back in 1990. And according to him, user experience encompasses all aspects of end user interaction with the company, its services, its product. So let's take an example. For example, let's say you go to a Maruti showroom today, right? When you enter the showroom, how do the staff there treats you, welcomes you? Do they offer you water? Do they offer you tea? What is the type of ambience? Do you feel comfortable sitting in that environment? How are you shown the vehicles, right? And then the product itself, the experience you get in the product is, of course, the product's experience. And then if you buying experience, how quick it was, right? What formalities were to be done. So if you think of entire chain from the moment you entered the store and when you leave the store, if it's a smooth, happy experience, you'll be happy overall, right? Not just about the car. You'll be happy that you have bought from somewhere that really cares about their customer. Versus, let's say you were made to sit for 4 hours and your kids are screaming, when will we get the car, etc., etc. That's not a happy experience, right? So that's what this definition means, that it means end-to-end experience that you get when you interact with a product or a service. On the left side, you see a diagram which kind of says that user experience sits at the, let's say, intersection of what users want to experience, what business wants to drive out of that experience, and what technology can enable for that experience. So together, all of these three kind of intersect, and then only we can get the right user experience. All right. So moving on to some roles and nuances about user experience. So there are multiple, roles you may hear in the industry, in your peers or going forward. So it's important to understand what these roles really mean. So in UX space, there could be 6, 7 variety of roles, and all of you can actually specialize in any of the roles you want to. But these are all part of the user experience, let's say, ecosystem. So first is user researcher, right? So researcher is the person who actually goes and thinks about the target audience, their motivations, their behaviors. They research, they pick out the insights, and they kind of then carve out the goals that we want to achieve through the end product. Then they pass that, let's say, to a UX designer. Now, UX designer is the person who will actually think of the product's layout, where the elements will go, okay, what will happen if somebody clicks something or not. So they kind of lay it out, right? They're not still actually designing it, but they are just converting the insights received from the researcher to that is then passed on to a person called UI designer. Now, UI designer is the actual person who will really create the visual elements, let's say, right? The color combinations, the buttons, the logos, the theme, etc. So the UI designer actually converts what UX designer and user researcher has provided to them. Then there is another type of a role called interaction designer. Now, many times UI designer and interaction designer could be played by a similar person too. But at times it could be specialist role too. Interaction designer is more focused on, let's say, micro actions, animations, swipes, those kind of things, which are not just, let's say, the full UI, but specific sections of the interactions. Then we have content strategists. Now, content strategists are the one that decide the text that will go in the website or the mobile, the videos that we can use, the images we will plant, right? And all this should line up very well with the overall user experience journey we want to provide. So I mean, let's say if it's a hotel website, you would not want to show a video of a non-related topic, for example. Your images should speak what it is about, this page is about, for example, right? So those kind of things a content strategist thinks of. Finally, there is an information architect. That's a broader role. What should be the structure? What should be the blueprint of the entire application, website, etc. What should be the navigation? So all these things, the digital blueprint is created by the information architect. Let me try to explain it further with a practical example to all of you. So look at, I hope my screen is still visible. So I'm just explaining few roles with the help of, let's say, some images here. On the left, you will see a person trying to, deep dive into some insights, looking at some data, thinking about certain things. So those are the type of activities a user researcher would do, right? Something that I just explained. And then, a UX designer would perhaps create a quick, framework of it, a wireframe of it, think of elements that will go, what will work, what will not work, do iterations on it, and then finally pass it to a UI designer and interaction designer. So you can see that on the rightmost side is an Amazon app. All the buttons, images you see would be done by a UI designer. Some kind of swipes, animations could be done by an interaction designer. So this is how, you can relate these different roles to how they would end up being on a product. Now, why user experience is important? As I spoke in the beginning, like quality, is very important. Similarly, is user experience, because it touches us subconsciously and subconsciously, right? We don't even realize what impact it has on us when we are experiencing a product, right? So let's say you are on a mobile app or a web app or etc., and you get a good experience, you enjoy the experience that you are getting, then overall you feel happy and satisfied, right? You would want to play for some more time. You would want to perhaps explore more, which would lead into, let's say, the next benefit, which is improved conversion rates. So the businesses are looking for what? The end user should perhaps subscribe to a service or sign up for a service or buy something. So how do you encourage those actions, right? How do you get those conversions? So again, if a user is confused, they can't figure out what to do, you'll have poor conversion rates versus a strong conversion rate. Then, brand perception. A strong brand is always backed by a good UX. The topmost brand today in the world is Apple. And when you think of Apple, their products, their website, whatever you engage with, their physical, stores, you will see that their premiumness in the brand is pretty evident, right? So that's what brand perception is. Then the advantages are, how do you save cost, like reduce support cost. So if you have a bad experience, you would raise a lot of flags, right? A lot of tickets, a lot of questions, a lot of complaints about a service, and then you will have to solve it. Rather than you can save it by simply building a good user experience. And last is something which is pretty obvious, which is increasing user engagement. So the more users come to your site, the more conversion, more satisfaction they will have. So they will like to stick to your site. They'll promote your site and be a loyal customer for a very, very long time. So overall, if you see, UX is a very important aspect for ensuring that your business goals are met. I think that's why it's very important. Here's an example again. So this was an airline which were looking to kind of relaunch their web product and mobile applications, and catering to the latest needs of the market and their users. And once they launched it, I'll not go into much details about it, but the facts are that they achieved a very high increase in conversion rate, like 14% increase in conversion rate. They had 20% drop in support calls. Like that's a big number, right? So if you are getting a lot of complaints earlier, you got a 20% drop simply by improving the UX. The flyers book nearly twice as fast compared to any other device. So the experience overall improved so much that their revenue kind of also increased by 25 to 30%, right? So this is the impact that a good UI UX experience can bring to a product. This is actually a true example of Virgin Atlantic airline actually. Okay, so that's quickly the introduction part of the user experience. Now we can perhaps deep dive into the framework itself. How should we approach user experience? What should be our strategy? How do we design it for the product or the solution we are trying to build? So it's a 5-level, let's say 5-step process that I'm going to share with you today. You have 8 steps already. These are the 5 that matter most, and we have been speaking about it a bit also. So first of all, you should not start any work without doing the research properly, right? You have to do your research properly. Why this product is being built? What are the goals that you are trying to achieve? Who is going to use the product? Unless you have all that picture clear, you will never have a good product or solution created, right? Once you have done your research, you know what you are trying to build, then you kind of define the problem more properly. You may have multiple problems. For example, sometimes you could be building a new product, sometimes you could be revamping a product. So the problems could be different, right? So depending upon the situation, understand the type of problems you are trying to solve. It's not just one problem always. There could be a combination of 3-4 problems that you want to solve. And how would you address it? You have to figure it out, right? Then you move to creating a design that would support those problem solutions. Ultimately, you need to have a cohesive design strategy. We'll deep dive into it, but at a very high level, it means that when you create the final experience, it should not look broken. It should not look disjointed. Let's say if you should have a theme that should continue. And if I look at your product on a web, or if I look up on your product on a mobile app, I should still be able to quickly understand, oh, this is the same product, not 2 different products, right? So that's the cohesive design strategy. And then, of course, this is such a process that you have to keep testing and iterating. Your users will change, their expectations will change, their behaviors will change. So you'll have to continuously keep testing it and checking it back with them so that you can continuously improve your product for the next iterations. So that's the overall framework. Let's just quickly deep dive into the framework with some examples. Now the first step is user research. Now, if you look at the left side, again, there are many steps involved, but not very difficult to understand, right? As I already spoke, we have to go through your goals, right? The goals we spoke about, why, how, what, etc. Then the users, right? For whom we are trying to build this method. Then you have to choose your research method. Now, once you've identified your target audience or your users for which you are building this product, how will you conduct the research, right? There could be surveys, there could be focus group interviews, there could be, some online, let's say, forms given out to them. You can remotely observe and do sessions, etc., etc. So you have to do your research to see how people are engaging with perhaps an existing version of a product, or with a competitor product, or with a prototype that you may have developed, right? That's all part of the research. Then once you've done the research, you capture the data, analyze the data to figure out, okay, what have we found? Those findings have to be presented. And these findings would ultimately lead to the creation of the new experience that you want to design. And if required, you can repeat the process. So this is a process which, if needed to be repeated, please do it. Because unless you are clear that your research is complete and you have figured out what you want to build, what you want to solve, there is no point in moving forward, right? So you iterate it here once or twice if required. So that's high level, let's say, user research. Here's an example how, let's say, somebody could do a user research, right? This is an example from a health app, a fitness app, let's say, and somebody who was trying to build the user experience for it. Now, this is for Fitbit, right? I hope all of you have heard about Fitbit. It's a smart watchmaking company also, but they entered into the market as a health app company, right? So on the right, you will see a 2x2 matrix, which is talking about what is most important to the company. And then you can also see what is most important to the user, right? So if you don't see all the goals together, because you are trying to build something which will generate good experience for the user and ultimately good, let's say, business for the company that is building that solution. And on the left, you will see, the work in progress kind of thing, the research, sticky notes, like what are different topics that I want to observe and solve, right? So this is all part of the research, and you have to do deep dive in research to figure out all the problems that you want to solve. So this is an example of how you do user research, and there are multiple tools available in the market that can help you in conducting your research, as we spoke, interviews, focus group sessions, surveys, etc. So you can choose your path. How do you want to do the research? But that's like number one step and most important. Once you have done the research, you have the data, you start analyzing it to bubble up the problems, right? Now, what is the main problem that I want to solve? What are the priority problems? Do we see any kind of patterns or trends? Ultimately, you have to define the problem statements that you are going to action upon. Again, continuing the example, you look from that example for the Fitbit thing. The main problem statements that they were able to figure out were like that the users were not able to discover how to track and log their exercise. They were not able to find what are the levels or different relevant exercises that they can choose, right? How do they edit their information on the app? So these are some of the problems that during the user research came and then finally bubbled up as top problems during the problem statement phase. And the right, you can see a persona where a person, let's say Charlotte, is being shown and her behaviors are captured, her needs and goals are captured, etc., which all feeds into kind of deciding, okay, how will we solve the problem? And you have to create these workflows, these diagrams, like figure out really, bubble up that problem, ask those questions, create your structure. Then only you would know, okay, these are my top problems that I want to solve. So this is a process of bubbling up your problems that you want to ultimately solve for your customers. Once you have defined the problem statements that you want to solve, then you move towards design, right? Now is the time to move towards design. Till now, we have done nothing in designing. We were just researching and defining the problem. No design work started. Now we are at that stage where we can jump into, let's say, designing certain prototypes, designing certain wireframes, for whom we want to build this, etc., etc. So these steps are like, target the personas. So let me take an example of personas just to make sure that everybody understands. So let's say you are using an app like Myntra or etc., right? So when you go to Myntra or any, let's say, similar app, you would see men's, women's, kids, those kind of sections listed there. So these are personas, right? They're targeting, okay, a women user has come, a male user has come, or somebody's trying to go for a kids shopping, right? So you need to understand the persona and then accordingly provide them the experience based on that persona, right? So you have to do a lot of persona testing. You have to do a lot of refinement of the problem. Ultimately, you work with your team to brainstorm and create the first designs. You prototype and test. So for example, in this screen, you can see again in the Fitbit app, initially, they created a design which is shown on the left and then they created a design which is shown on the right side. Now, earlier, users was facing a lot of problem to figure out, okay, which type of exercise is good for them, because though there was no real action or no real clue for them to understand. When all was reduced, which was very helpful for users to simply go into the type of exercises they want to do, right? And from a 5 out of 5 people struggling earlier, only one person struggled after the design change. So like, it dropped from 5 out of 5 to 1 out of 5. So simple change, sometimes, a very small change can bring a small impact in terms of user experience, etc. Then finally, whatever prototypes you have done, you need to test it, right? So you have to identify the, what is that you are going to test today. You are going to recruit some users. I hope you have heard about alpha testing, beta testing, or these stages. So this is what we are talking about here. You kind of set up a target user set, give your prototypes, give your product to them, and kind of conduct those testing sessions and observe them how they are using the product again, right? So one was, let's say, the testing in the beginning to figure out the problems. Now it is about the testing to figure out whether what you have built is working or not. So there's a difference, right? From finding out problems to testing what we have built is working or not. So we do that. We need to iterate it again. We need to keep reevaluating, things, and ultimately, when evidence that our product is meeting the expectations and goals of our users, then we kind of launch it and let it go live. Right? It's a continuous journey. You keep doing it. Now let's talk about a design strategy, cohesive design strategy that we did. I spoke about an example like, right, if you engage with a product in multiple, let's say, channels like a web or a mobile, but if you are easily able to relate, oh, I know this is the same product, it is because there is a lot of similarity in the experience you get, lot of visual cues, lot of branding, theming, that matters, right? It's very important that you create a cohesive design strategy. In common layman words, you can also call it as a style guide that you have created for your product, right? So you start from the very first step of, okay, what are your design goals? What our brand identity is going to speak about? What should be our visual hierarchies? What type of colors are we going to use? What type of fonts are we going to use? What visual elements will be using, whether it be images, videos, animations, whatnot. Think about your overall layout and composition, and then specify the design, right? Here's an example for, let's say, a very basic style guide, but it will give you an idea of what I'm talking about here. So what type of colors you will, right? What type of fonts you will use, what type of buttons you will use. Now this is important because let's say tomorrow when you're working in a team, everybody else sends you, they don't have, oh, what is I need to use. This becomes their blueprint to build more, let's say, functionalities or continue to work on that application with the same level of brand impact and cohesiveness. So this is an example of a style guide. Very simple. These can be very, very elaborative. I'll encourage you to go and search about style guides from big companies like Apple, Adobe, Google, etc. And you'll see how beautifully they have designed their style guides to ensure that their brand language is consistent across any product that they launch, any service that they launch. All right, let's try to quickly now jump into what are some of the important aspects when we are designing experience for the web versus designing experience for the mobile, right? So these are some of the top things that one needs to remember. We all know mobile is a smaller screen size. The real estate is really, really costly. And we have to be very, very choosy about what we want to put there. So a lot of icons instead of text are to be used. We know mobile of touch, you can use voice, etc. So these are the things that you must use when you are creating something for the mobile, right? You need to use the power of the platform. What is the context of the use, right? You like for mobile, we could be using mobile while we are on the go. We could be using it at the airport, at a cafe, in our bed, right? And at a place where there could be network or no network. So these things are important to design for a mobile, right? And you must not forget that the generation today that we are having is a very mobile friendly generation. So mobile has actually become a priority user experience or an engagement point for most of us versus, let's say, a desktop, right? It's available. The mobile is always available to you on the go wherever you are. So just remember that you have to use it properly, right? The user experience part for the mobile. If you don't have a network connectivity, how would your applications behave? So there are techniques to make it work in an offline model also. So these are important, right? Whether you're designing for an Android or an iOS, or you're designing hybrid app, that's also very important. What is your target audience? Are you targeted at an audience or a demographics which is very, let's say, iOS specific? So you could go for iOS, or you are targeting a geography which you know where the product would get more traction on Android. You can go for Android, or you can use a technique which is like hybrid mobile development and build something which could work on both the OS, but would perhaps be not having the same level of finesse or power as a native app on these platforms. So you'll need to make these choices, right? Based on, again, your product's target market and target users. Then next is performance. Now, mobiles, etc., don't have similar power as laptops, right? So you need to make sure your apps are able to run properly, right? They should be lightweight. They should not be very heavy. There should not be too much content, etc. And then lastly is accessibility, which applies to both, but the treatment is different. So today it is very important to have accessible apps so that people with some kind of disabilities can also use your app. So, on mobile, you can use voice at times, and you can use colors that are easy to work with, etc., etc. So these are some of the key important points that one must take into consideration when you are designing something for mobile versus web. Let's look at some tips of building a good UX. So what is that we should not be doing, right? It's important to also understand that part. So it's absolutely bad to have confusing navigation, right? If you land on a product site or a web app or a mobile app and you just don't know what is my next step, right? You don't understand the structure, the information architecture is poor. Your application is loading slow, right? You will go away. You will not wait. Nobody has the time to wait. The design is not responsive, right? You don't have clear buttons or links to define what is the action that the person has to take. Font typography is, let's say, distributed, broken, and then of course the accessibility part again. Let me show you an example of a very popular Indian site which has very, very bad UX. So this is our Indian Railways site, IRCTC. Just look at this site for a moment, go through it, observe it. I'll give you a few seconds to look at it. You'll find multiple problems in this website. For example, I very hardly can read what is written here in white. Safety, security, punctuality on this background, right? Too many things happening, right? What is this pop-up? This looks like, a bad UI. This ad is coming here. The navigation is very broken. Completely confusing UI. And, so many logos, so many images. What is the hierarchy? What is the relationship? What is that we want to do? The focus perhaps is not on what we have come to do here. It's about a lot of things, right? It's not a good UI UX experience at all. Now let's look at a second site. This is from, let's say, an international site which does similar purpose. Look at this site, like very clean, very smooth on eyes, very easy to understand. Even interactions, though in the image you cannot see, but there you can see there's a carousel. So they can also use the space to show more things in a clean way. The action buttons are so nice and clean, and it's a minimalistic design, right? So this is what we're trying to say, that what not to do versus what to do. So again, just see, like, this is so overwhelming and this is so soothing. So that's the difference between a good UX UI and a bad UX UI. There's some more examples that I would like to go through of what is a good UI versus a bad UI, right? So I hope the animation is visible to everybody, but on the right side, you see there's a save button, and once the save was done, let it repeat. Sorry, I didn't catch up it in time. So let's say I've clicked save here. I have no indication, no clue, and then suddenly save came. Whereas if I on the left side say save, it is giving me immediate indication of what is happening, right? So it is showing me the current state, which is a good input for users to know what is happening. That's a good example of how to do interactions. There's another example, don't use complex, confusing languages that people don't understand, right? Initiate autonomous control sequence versus deploy vehicle, right? And you'll come across these things because at times things are designed by somebody who is from that field, or they have not really thought about, okay, who is going to be my target audience, right? And they will use things that they like, but the end user would not be able to understand. Another example is about how do you use colors in hierarchy. On the right side, it's very difficult to figure out where is cancel create, for example. On the left side, you can easily see cancel create, and you are highlighting the create action, which is the more prominent or primary action. So these are simple techniques in which you can show things. Another example, don't give too many options on screens at times, right? Confusing it. It is confusing, right? You will lead to more errors. Reduce the choices that you want to give to your customer so that they are not confused with it. Similarly, all of us fill forms, and we know filling form could be a lot of pain, right? There are multiple times we have to fill long forms, etc., multiple pages, and then an error would come, and we'll keep scrolling here and there to figure out where the error is, and ultimately, we'll try to figure out, okay, what the error is. So help your user understand the error better, and how can they resolve that error by a simple messaging, as explained in this example, where on the right side, the email was wrong, but the error is so vague, like, format does not match the database. It's a very technical error. How would I understand what I have to do? Whereas on the left, I can see that I've been clearly told that I've entered a wrong email address, but I should use an @, and I've also been given a hint to let's say, understand how different email formats are created or works. All right. So those are some examples to give you an idea of how good versus bad UI could look like. Now let's look at what is the direction of UX going forward, right? So we all know how artificial intelligence is taking over the world. We all know how augmented reality, virtual reality, wearable technologies are taking over the world. So the future products need to also be designed for that, right? So increased use of artificial intelligence and machine learning. In what sense? So if you learn from my behavior, and when I visit your product again, and using that intelligence, you are able to give me more personalized, more better experience next time, right? That's where this part comes in. Virtual and augmented reality, we know. I'm not sure whether you've seen it or not, but in a lot of the commercial sites like Amazon, etc., you can today go and, for example, want to buy a furniture like a chair. You can actually position it in your, using your camera in your room, and kind of experience exactly how it will look in the setup. So these are the new use cases of experiences using AR, VR, right? Conversational interfaces is like chatbots, etc., that we use. All these apps today, like Swiggy, Zomato, and multiple bank apps. Today, nobody is really talking to you. You're talking to chatbots now, right? So you need to design your chatbots very, very, very well. How they ask the question, how they respond. So it has become a very good point of user experience, right? From a support perspective. Then focus on accessibility will continue to happen, right? We all know that inclusivity is a big topic today. So as we include more people of diversity, etc., it's important that we are also able to design experiences that can cater to their needs. And then finally, wearable technology. You have these big cameras or glasses that you can wear and experience, the world of virtual reality again. So, or your watches, etc., that you are wearing, and even on a small watch today, you can see on the smartwatches, so much user experience is there. Your health is being tracked. You are swiping, checking everything. You're getting phone calls, SMS messages on that too. So all this is very important areas of, let's say, it's already there, but it is still progressing. I've kept it in future because some of these are really future topics. Some of them are topics that are happening today and are evolving. So these are some of the areas that will become very important from an overall UX strategy for any product or services company. Then in terms of importance, there's a lot of demand going to be there in the market for these, specialists. So we will need more people who understand UX. People from variety of backgrounds will come into this field, right? Even people who have done psychology, behavioral science, or special studies could be involved in creating user experiences in future, right? Because today it's left a lot to, let's say, technical designers, etc. But more and more, you will need experts from the right fields to come and help create the experiences. With the technology, the complexity also gradually, keeps on increasing. So how do you give experiences for increased complexity is going to be important. Business impact is something that we already spoke of, but yeah, ultimately, businesses that have great experiences to offer would win in the longer race, right? They'll be the one who will share the market size more. And then interdisciplinary nature, again, something related to the fields from where people will come and contribute into the user experience. So I think going forward, user experience will become even more important as a concept, as a field, and we just need to continuously work on the right tools and technologies that will enable us to take it in the future. Just a quick slide about, if and it's almost towards the end of the my presentation also, but if you are interested to build a career in UX, right? And I hope a lot of people today here are interested. It's going to be a fascinating field, and it's going to be an evergreen field. Now, how do you build? Like you have few colleges, let's say like NID, etc. in India, but not everybody can go there. But good thing is that with the advent of technology, we have so much learning avenues available today that you can join courses, you can go to multiple learning portals and acquire this knowledge, acquire this certificates, and build upon your own, let's say, experiences as a user experience, let's say, expert. You must build a portfolio. Let's say if you want to tomorrow go into this field, you should have a portfolio. Build a portfolio, keep it relevant, right? And show it to people around you, gather their feedback, go to networking sessions like today you are doing it. It's a great thing, right? Similarly, go to many such similar forums where UI UX is a topic. Stay current about latest technologies, what's happening in this field. And then, as we spoke in the beginning, there are multiple facets of this role, right? Pick the one that suits you most and then specialize in that one. And then you can build a wonderful career in the UX field too. So coming towards the end, I hope I have some time left to finish it. There are 3 points that I would just say. Your product's user experience plays a critical role in attracting your and retaining your customer base. So what are the takeaways? That's right. So ultimately, we need a good user experience to make sure our product is sticky, our product is appreciated, and our customer is happy about it, right? If your customer is not happy about your product and they're not loving it, then your business goals are not met, right? Companies that are investing in it would continue to have that. That to happen, such strong people are needed in the industry. So that's what I would say, that's the importance of having a UX in the industry today and even going forward. Yeah, I think, Dr. Ritika, that's mostly what I wanted to present. I have some examples in the appendix that I've kept. I can talk about, these examples if time permits.
Yes, sir. We have around 10 minutes. So I think you can take up a few examples.
Sure. So these are some of the examples that I would want people to go and check so that they can understand why these companies have been so successful and why these companies have been the pioneers in UX, right? So Airbnb is a rental company for accommodation, right? We all know about Airbnb. They completely not only disrupted the industry, but also the experience that their site provides was something that was taken as case studies across the world. Apple, we all know the product, the experience that they offer. Spotify is a music app, and that's again highly recommended in terms of the user experience it offers. If you haven't seen that, you can see that. Duolingo is a language learning application. It's a mobile app. It's on web also, but its mobile app is better, and I've been a user of that app for a very long time. I've been learning French from it for some time, and it's a very gamified platform. So Duolingo is very famous in terms of the way it teaches. It's a very gamified platform. Very, very interesting. Very, 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 very cool. So anybody who wants to learn a new language, I can tell you that in 15 to 20 days, you will learn at least this much language that when you go to a different country using Duolingo, you'll be at least able to do the basic interactions of asking for a route, asking for a food, etc. Right? Those things you can easily do. And then Instagram is also a very prominent example of a social application that is being used so much. And if you look at the use cases, it started as a uh, application where people are posting reels, videos, right? But today it's a big business platform. Most of the businesses, entrepreneurs are using Instagram to create their complete business on the Instagram, their followers, their communities, everything. So these are some of the pioneers which have done excellent user experience work and have been really successful in achieving their business goals and making users happy. Then there are some of the agencies that you can follow. These are some of the agencies from where you can learn about more of UX Studio, IDEO. IDEO is actually very famous, and they were the pioneers actually in this field. They disrupted the whole concept of UX. Then there are multiple others other that I've listed here, like MATLAB, Frog Design, Nielsen Norman Group, that actually coined the word user experience. So these have been some of the major agencies that one can go and look from and learn from further in terms of understanding the user experience part. And I think I hope somebody has worked here and has also experienced how these companies work. I think that should be it from my side, Dr. Dika. I think I'm happy to take Q&A questions also now.
Thank you
so much.
Sir. Thank you so much. I'm sure this enlightful session has enlightened the participants about UX design, because there are many questions by the participants, which I would now consolidate and I would like to take up now with your permission.
Sure. Happy to answer these questions now.
Yes, sir. So the first question we have, how does the concept of design thinking apply to this UX design field?
Yeah, so absolutely great question. And I did not touch upon design thinking today specifically because design thinking itself is a concept like user experience, right? So design thinking is also about keeping design first when we are building any product, right? So it's part of let's say the user experience only, but design thinking is and user experience are very tied together. And when you are talking about design thinking, the principle is that, okay, again, think from your user's perspective and then start your journey of building that product. So they're very correlated field. Is just, sometimes on user experience is the broad, let's say, generic term, but design thinking is the more, let's say, fashionable term and a technique or a way we do it now. So very correlated.
Thank you, sir. So the next question we have, how challenging can it be to create products and services that are not only useful but also enjoyable to the Indian customer segment, because here the variety is too diverse? I think there was a bit of noise in between. Should I repeat the question, sir?
Yeah. Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Yes, sir. How challenging can it be to create products and services that are not only useful but also enjoyable to the Indian customer segment, because here the variety is too diverse?
Right. So again, variety is too diverse, but ultimately, whatever you are trying to build would have a certain target audience or a goal, right? You would not just create something for entire Indian audience. That will not work, to be honest, right? That will not work. I mean, diversity is so much there, but ultimately, what is that you are trying to build? If it's let's say if it's a general kind of a thing, let's say you are building a gaming platform, which of course everybody could use, then it's an enjoyable platform anyhow, right? But in terms of when you are thinking of what product or what is that you want to design, it's very important to first identify, okay, what is that my target audience is, what are the goals for this target audience that are there. Now if in the question the person is asking enjoyable as well as satisfying, right? Now I don't know what would mean enjoyable per se, but if you are able to find things and you are able to successfully navigate through the application and you are able to do what you came to do on that application, I think it's enjoyable and it is satisfying.
Absolutely.
Right? But I mean, I'll perhaps need more details in terms of the question, but I would say that you still need to focus on your target audience and the goal and make sure that those are achieved to make it enjoyable and satisfying.
Absolutely. So next question we have, what are the employment opportunities for UX designers in India, especially at the beginner or the fresher levels?
Very good opportunities exist, right? This is a very strong field. The number of opportunities, to be honest, would not be at the same number in terms of quantity, like a developer or some other roles. But these are very important roles in any company, right? Um and from my experience, earlier these roles used to be very important in product companies, but in the last 5 years, the game has completely changed, and every company, whether it is services or product, are looking for user experience experts. Like at my company, at my organization, we know we have a very strong setup of such roles, and without them, we cannot be successful. So at a junior level, also, there are multiple opportunities. But to enter into this field, as I spoke in one of my slide, Dr. Ritika,
Yes.
either you have a formal education or you should have done something about it, right? You should have done some course about it. You should have done some portfolio. I think a portfolio is the biggest asset for anybody who wants to start a career at a, let's say, early stage or a junior stage in their journey. So build that portfolio, build those credentials, and then there are multiple opportunities that exist in India today.
Thank you, sir. Because there are a number of questions related to the same. Next question we
And
have.
if I may add, it's a well-paid job.
Absolutely.
So it's not
That was
that
another question specifically on the salary.
it's a well-paid job. It's a very well-paid job.
Yes, sir. So the next question we have, how does someone become a good user experience or interface designer? Is it typically an engineer or largely from the design institutes? Like, are there any design specialization programs available in the country?
Yes, yes. So if you go to all these learning portals which are in India, I mean, you can access anything which is Indian or non-Indian today, sitting here, Udemy, Udacity, Simply Learn, Coursera, whatever you may want to learn, right? And specialized courses are available for UX, UI on all these platforms. There are institutes like MICA, NID, which are like the premium institutes in India, but then, not everybody can make it there. So there are institutes also, but I think this is a field in which you can build your by acquiring that knowledge through certifications and courses also. The basic thing that you need to have is an eye for, how do you get the customer, etc. If you have that kind of an eye, that kind of a mindset, you can easily acquire these courses and then develop yourself into this field. Also, people coming from non-technical fields are also very good in user experience, right? So we spoke about various, right? Not all roles were really technical. For example, a user researcher was not really coding or like really building something on a programming level, right? But they were doing research. So a researcher is a good field. Content strategist is a good field. So there are multiple aspects of this role which one can do without being worried about whether I'm an engineer or not. But if you're an engineer, you can further develop it. That's an
Yes, sir,
advantage.
Next question we have, is the problem statement defined by us in this case, especially in this job, especially dependent on the user persona we select, or we can take a generic problem to address?
Again, depends on the context, Dr. Ritika here. Ideally, you should solve the problem for a particular targeted persona, right? Otherwise, it depends. If the product is so generic that it could be used by anybody and you're not really worried about personas, right? For example, if I go to Amazon shopping, maybe it can work for anybody. And I do shopping, my wife do shopping, my kids could also do shopping, so maybe that's fine. But if I'm going to use something which really needs to understand my persona, then I need to do according to persona based research and then goals of that persona.
Absolutely, sir. Next question we have, how do companies who develop these apps validate them before releasing them?
Right. So we spoke about testing, right? So there are multiple ways to test it. A lot of the product companies do alpha, beta, gamma kind of, stages also, which is more about, selecting a certain set of users, deploying their application to them for early feedback in terms of any new functionality, any issues, any feedback. And then also, there's a continuous process in which even the live apps are getting tested. There's a concept called A/B testing. So what happens is that sometimes you see that an ongoing product in the market, and suddenly to some users a new feature would be rolled out, but not to everybody, or something they would change specifically for a group of people only, just to see how it acts. So they test ongoing in an ongoing fashion also, and during the development phase also you can do focus testing by going through this alpha, beta, gamma kind of stage where you select your audience, test your product, get their feedback, and then refine and relaunch.
Absolutely, sir. Sir, last question for the day. Which platform is regarded best for app development in the current scenario?
Okay, so the market is pretty split between Android and iOS. I think still the ecosystem of apps on Apple is controlled. Android, it is more flexible. So if you are trying to build a app for mobile, you'll have more, let's say, acceptance and more opportunities in Android environment today compared to Apple.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for this wonderful session today and for wonderfully taking up all the question answers. I think we can go along the complete night with the kind of questions we are getting. But with this, we'll come to an end to this wonderful session today. And I will now invite Professor M.N. Huda, sir, to present a certificate for this wonderful session to Vinay, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Naji. It has been a very informative session, and I'm sure every coming day the requirement of user interface related design concerns and design applications will increase. So from mobile app we'll be moving to that domain, though maybe in numbers may be less, but in terms of value addition will be very high. This certificate is not for the purpose of certification, is only for the purpose of remembrance that you have delivered such a wonderful webinar from this platform. Thank you so much, and by now I have also reached to my office. We'll meet.
So we also have an e-memento.
Again, this e-memento is all change, all an electronic domain. So this e-memento is also a part of the same remembrance. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vinay.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity again. Thank you.